Alrighty, gang. Here's to nights that turn into mornings and friends that turn into family. Cheers!
Happy birthday to you!
Hello, and welcome to the Friendship IRL podcast. I'm your host, Alex Alexander. My friends, they would tell you I like to ask the hard questions. You know who I am in the group. I'm the person that's saying, okay, I'm going to ask this question, but don't feel like you have to answer it. And now I can be that friend for you too. Today's episode, I invite my husband, Michael, onto the podcast. And you might be wondering, Alex, you just started a friendship podcast. Why are you bringing on your romantic partner? Well, here's the thing. In a world that prioritizes romantic partnership, we see all the relationships in our life as support for this romantic partnership. And this romantic partnership as support for all the relationships that surround us. Friendships, family, community, it's all connected. So today we want to let you inside how we look at the interconnectedness of all of these relationships and how prioritizing friendship can actually support your marriage. Hi, babe.
Hey there.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. How are you feeling about your first podcast recording?
A little nervous, but we have some good things to talk about.
When I went down this road, did you know I was going to drag you in to the podcast?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. We've been down this friendship community thing together, well, since we've known each other for the last 13 years or so.
13 years. So for a little backstory, we met when we were 20, and I probably will have to go dig some photos out of the archives when I say that. We met in college, so prime time for friends. And I actually think that's something that makes our marriage and the balance of friendships rather interesting, is if we had just forgotten everybody else at the time in life when everybody's spending all the time with their friends, we wouldn't have had any friends. Like, I think we had to figure out how to balance our romantic relationship with all of our friendships. You wouldn't believe me if I told you this, but Michael's actually a talker. Michael, I think, might be more extroverted than I am, and that's hard to do. But you'll come to find I spend endless hours thinking about our friendships. So it's no shock that he's just agreeing with me here. But we've had this conversation many a time. In college, everything is about your friends. You live with your friends. You wake up and text them. You ask them what they're doing for breakfast, lunch, dinner, classes, errands. You are living life with your friends. And when Michael and I met junior year of college, it was no different. We both had thriving groups of friends. And we really didn't want to lose that. I don't know if it was just because we met halfway through junior year or what, but I think we knew that the amount of time we had left seeing our friends this way every day was the days were numbered. So we kept going. We kept going with the friendships. We didn't change anything. And that's kind of how we've prioritized it our entire relationship.
Agreed.
That's all you have to say on that?
I mean, it's well put. I certainly came from a family and grew up where friends were important to me, and my earlier years in college, that continued to be the case. I had roommates and other friends that I just knew I was going to be close with, and I wanted the person that I was going to end up with to, knock on wood, be friends with them. And fortunate enough, that was the case for both of us. But certainly you have to make it a priority, which you may not even realize when you're 20, just going through what it is to be 20 in college.
Do you think when we were 20 that we balanced our friendships and our relationship well? Like, do you think we did a good job?
Honestly, it's probably similar to how we do it now. It just comes naturally. And I know I've used the word already, but we do prioritize it, whether it's extrinsically or intrinsically. Like, we just do it, and we always have. So, just by nature of us being together, getting to know each other, certainly, but our friends as well, it just fortunately for us clicked.
So you and I have talked about this a number of times. It's not a new conversation. But in a world that prioritizes romantic relationships above all else, I don't know if I'd say that we see it that way. Like, I think that we believe that the other relationships support our marriage and our marriage supports those other relationships, and it's all like symbiotic and connected. I don't really know how we've done that, but I think we have. We encourage each other to have other friends, depend on other people. That's like a constant thing that we've done. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think you used the word burden, and what we learned or just happenstance really dove into was understanding what each other could provide to the other and what we needed to find elsewhere in our existing friendships or the new friendships we were developing as we were starting to build our romantic relationship, which obviously turned into marriage. But I think we both understood, which, yes, may be the opposite of what society tells you, is it's too much of a burden to put on one person to do that.
If you are confused because you have not heard the word burden, just know I was also confused when we recorded this. But the more I think about it, I think Michael's just referring to how in our everyday life, when we are not recording this podcast, I talk about how unfair it is to burden one person, how I cannot expect him to hold and support all the parts of me because he doesn't share all the same interests. He doesn't have all the same life experiences. I mean, honestly, he doesn't move through this world as a woman, so he can't understand certain things. No other person can understand and hold all the parts of us. And I feel like sometimes that's what marriage expectations are, is that we marry this person, they become our person, and they're supposed to know how to be there for us in all the ways, all the time. And that feels like an unfair burden.
We've made it in terms of relying on other people to fill whatever bucket we need to. And certainly you have more buckets than anyone else in my life, but you definitely don't have all of them.
Like fantasy football. I don't know. I don't have the fantasy football bucket, babe. I don't have the sports bucket. I don't have like all your interests.
Episode 8, Fantasy Football Talk.
You've already scheduled it in. Okay. We'll determine what episode number that is. But yeah, I do want to bring your fantasy football the guys on and talk about those friendships. But when you were just talking, I was thinking about how it's not even one person in a bucket. One area of support in your life isn't just me. It's a variety of people in a variety of ways, whether you go to me or not, or whether I'm not even in that bucket, like I'm not even in the fantasy football bucket, or I'm at the bottom, I'm like the smallest sliver, whatever it is, that it's not just one person. We each have a variety of people, I think, in each bucket.
Agreed, yeah. And that can be friends, it can be family, it can be coworkers. It really runs the gamut as long as you understand, or at least I think it's important to understand, that what you need in your life, you can rely on others to provide that. And if you're blunt and frank with those individuals, then they can provide the support that you're looking for in whatever that area is. And like you said, it definitely is not one person. It can be a multitude of people for whatever you're really looking for.
One of the most common objections I hear when I give our take on a romantic partnership and friendships is the sharing of time, the loss of time with your significant other. There's no way around it. The honest truth is, yes, it cuts into your time. But the way I like to think about it is when we do come back together, we come back with fresh perspectives. We come back re-energized because we spent our time doing something we love. And it also honestly creates a little scarcity. It makes us appreciate the time we do have together and spend it in more intentional ways versus feeling like our time is endless. But there is some frustration sometimes. There's some struggle with maybe having to change plans or cancel plans, with having to juggle the fact that like a friend calls and wants to talk or wants to go do something. And that's a limited opportunity. Schedules align. And knowing and appreciating that those times don't come as often as the daily interactions that Michael and I have in our day-to-day life. You needed support, and we were supposed to do something. Like sometimes we have to cancel on each other. Sometimes we have to choose, me saying to you, like, yeah, you go hang out with him, or you go, go out and talk to him. He sounds like he's having a rough night. I don't know how we do that. Do you think we know that sometimes other people need us more than we need each other? Like, what are some other examples of ways that we encourage each other to go out and depend on other people?
Like you said, it's if you're having a bad day or angst, certainly it's you and I don't have all similar interests in terms of our hobbies or what generically we enjoy. I love sports. You call it sports ball. So I'm obviously not going to be going to you if I want to just sit down and watch a football game. I have other people to do that. And I think it's even outside of activities, it's also important things that are happening in your life. So I still have a lot of close people in my life where I started my career with them. And although we went different paths, I'm able to go to them when talking about my career. Certainly we have those conversations, but I can go, and I do go to them to talk about what's going on for me, hear about what's going on for them, get advice, and just have a dialogue because they are closer to knowing, I suppose, what I do, as opposed to you just hear it on a regular basis just by nature of us being together all the time.
Definitely. My focus is on you and your career and also how it impacts our life. So, I'm not impartial. Like my feelings and beliefs have a film over them of what I care about, and you going to another friend might be a better choice for you because they're not going to have those same filters. They're not going to push you because it doesn't affect them on the day-to-day the way it does me. I think about something often. The people that are closest to us are the ones that are going to have the hardest time when life transitions happen. Let me explain. If you have a fitness goal and you have tried to achieve this fitness goal many times, and you come to your partner, to your best friend, to your family who have watched all the previous attempts, and you tell them you're going for it, the past evidence that they have seen, what they have witnessed, is that you haven't committed, you haven't done it, right? You're still trying to do it. This is like take 17. And that can be so hard because you want your closest people to support you. And they might say, you've got it this time. And they truly want you to, but in the back of their mind, you can tell that they're thinking, like they have questions. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at here. It's a similar situation. In romantic partnership, when big shifts are happening, when big decisions, when career things, those trickle back into our house. So I am not impartial because, yes, I want what is right for my partner, but simultaneously, I also want maybe what makes my life comfortable, what makes my life easy, what I see our goals as. And I think we forget that sometimes. I think that we forget that the decisions we are all making trickle out to those around us. And that sometimes talking to someone else that is not affected by your decisions or your goals could be the right support for you to achieve those things because they don't have your history. If you tell someone you are going to go after that fitness goal and you've just met them, what do they have besides saying, yeah, you are. You're going to do it. I believe in you. Because they have nothing in their way to show them that they shouldn't believe you can do it. And I know that's hard to consider, going out there and telling these big, scary goals to someone you don't know. But maybe just consider that sometimes the people closest to us do want the best for us, but aren't the people to be part of the messy process fully. And they have different knowledge. They get it. They've been in the office, things like that.
Yeah, and the hope is anyone that's close in our life is going to have bias towards us. And your married, significant other, partner, what have you, is probably going to be more biased than anyone else towards you. So sometimes it's even nice to, if you have that trusting relationship, career, family, romantic relationship, whoever you go to, if you have already set a precedent of giving unbiased, real opinions, that's, in my estimation, really valuable because you're getting someone's real thoughts in whatever's going on in your life and the questions that you have in that particular topic.
Well, and you get a variety of perspectives too. Like ultimately, you're the one that's going to have to make the decision. You're just going to other people for their perspective or their experience. So that variety is helpful too.
And to that point, the variety is helpful because it will likely bring up something that you never thought of. It happens for me certainly all the time. I know it does for you in terms of I had this conversation and a light bulb came on and I wasn't even thinking about it from this lens or this angle or what have you. So getting that variety of opinions is great because everyone is having different experiences every day. So if it's a career thing, someone can draw on what they've been doing the last 5 years after we broke off from working together. Family, obviously family, it's a fully loaded term, but we all have different familial things going on and having those people to talk to about those helps me certainly live a fuller life. We'll say that.
I feel like we've all heard some variation of this quote, this advice that says, don't listen to somebody who isn't where you want to be, who is maybe like a step or two ahead of you. But when I think about this variety piece with friends, what I think about is sometimes people, go to their parents, for example, for advice on everything, for finances, for home purchases, for what we should do. And we live in a different time than our parents do. The world, the economy, things do not work the same way. What was good advice decades ago is not good advice now. Michael and I agree. We've talked about this. We have talked with so many friends about this, that a huge piece of our strength as a couple is the fact that we share actively with our friends our career choices, our finance questions. Who's done research on this? Who's experienced this? Who's gone after this thing that they want? How have you done it today in this day and age? And other people around us, wiser, smarter people, may not have to be going through it with the same, I want to say restrictions, like the same scenarios. And that's really what we're getting at here. We think part of our strength as a couple is that we are openly crowdsourcing with our friends what they're doing to achieve their goals, get the job, make the money, invest it. How are they making decisions about family or friends or moves, travel, where they're spending their time and their energy, who they're connecting with? Because they're doing the same thing we are, and sharing that and crowdsourcing that information is helping us as a couple. We're not stuck with just our two brains. We've got dozens of brains who are considering the same things we are. You know, the interesting thing when we're talking about variety is you go out and you get that advice on some career issue. You get other people's perspectives, especially people who work in the same industry or something, and then you bring that back into our marriage. So we could volley the issue back and forth between the two of us and spin with the same perspectives. But if you go out and get other opinions, then you're bringing those into your choices, which is impacting our life and our marriage and maybe giving me perspectives I hadn't heard of before. You know, that's forcing us to grow and change and think of things differently. So the variety isn't just helping you, it's also helping us.
Yeah, that's a good thought process and angle. And us certainly in our relationship, but for our friends, I know it's nice to be sought after for whatever purpose. So also for my friendship, if I'm asking for advice and I'm taking it, I'm listening, it's obviously a two-way street, but I think that only strengthens your friendships, your familial ties, what have you, if you have that dialogue back and forth. So everyone's coming out ahead.
Yeah, just more information, more perspectives. We got to take what feels right to us, but maybe something will appear that you haven't considered. So what are some ways, like real life examples? What are some things you think you encourage me to seek support in outside of our marriage?
It's an interesting question because there's really nothing or very few times we tell the other person, go do this or that, because it's just naturally what we've done.
Michael says that we've just always naturally done this. I think that's a marker of how long we've been together, because I don't think we've always naturally done this. I think a lot about this idea of like friendship culture. What is your friend group culture? And I think there's also a culture in a romantic relationship and in our marriage. Over the years, we have called each other out. We have said, I don't think I'm the right person for this. Or, I know I've used the sports example. I beat it to death in this episode, but funny enough, when we started dating, I used to watch football. It's the only time I've ever watched football. Those like first couple years we dated. And I used to be on a fantasy football team, which is hilarious to think about. And I would try to really love this interest for Michael. But the truth is, I don't love it. And I think I started to call that out and say, I'd rather you go watch the game with friends and I can go do what I want to do. And then when you come home and I come home, we will spend quality time together. We won't be burnt out. Maybe I won't be burnt out on trying to keep up with you and football today. And I think we do this in our friend groups too, but that's honestly probably a different episode. All I would say is start paying attention to the little things that are building up over time and how you can shift them. Because I really do think you can create this environment in any romantic relationship.
Where it's, I'm going to go on a walk with T, I'm going to go to a movie with A, what have you. We have a very clear understanding of who we go to for the needs in that particular area. And a lot of the times it's just a dialogue, it's a happy hour, it's a weekend getaway, whatever it is. We never ask, why are you doing that? You're choosing to do that and spending time with me. That has never been brought up for us because we understand that importance. I think it's not me continuing to tell you to do that as much as it's
like us just feeling free to do it because we've seen over time how positive it is for us individually and us together.
That's right. It's just, again, natural. We've had years of doing this and frankly are the people we are now in formative years, in our early 20s. So it likely is really hard work for that to happen. And we may have just been really lucky. It's not to say everything's been hunky-dory in terms of, oh, she's going out to see this person again. Be great just to hang out tonight. But the benefits obviously were understood. And here we are now.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely nights where you choose to do something and maybe I am invited or I'm not invited. I don't want to do that thing. I mean, movie group is a great example. Like sometimes I'm sad that you're going to see our friends and go to a movie, but I don't really want to sit through the movie. But I know you enjoy the movie. Like you love seeing them. I could go. Sometimes there's times I wish, yeah, like you wouldn't go to the movie and we could hang out and do something. I mean, I definitely think after so many times of that, at a certain point I'll say, I really wish we would go do something. And then we plan it and we do it. But that's not to say there aren't times where one of us is sad.
Yeah. I would imagine there would be a conversation if I went on 17 happy hours in a row after work. You would probably question me likely, and we would at least have a discussion in terms of the benefits of doing that and conversely the benefits of spending time with you. Likely that conversation would be like, oh yeah, light bulb, I probably shouldn't make it 18 in a row. But yeah, again, it's having a trustworthy, open dialogue with your needs and what's important to you and who you go to for that. We go to each other for a lot of things. Like that's not just it. Like we do that.
We do, but sometimes we go to somebody else and then kind of come report to the other person later. Like sometimes there's maybe news that is better for you to share with a work friend first, or sometimes I just think we're not always the first person we go to. You go to someone else or I go to someone else, and then we come back and like tell each other later.
I would say career-wise, I know I've probably gone to, whether it's current coworkers or those former coworkers who are continuing to be my friends, just by nature of having a running dialogue with them about that topic.
I think career is probably, a big one for me too. Like sometimes I will go to somebody else that understands, opening their own business, creating media content. Like I will go to somebody else with I did it, just because you aren't always going to understand the intricacies of how big of a deal it is that I did this tiny itty bitty little thing and like how hard it was, just because you don't do this. Somebody else understands the steps it took to do that thing more than you do. So when I tell you, you're excited for me because I'm excited, but you don't understand what it really took.
For you, that's the biggest case in point because our lines of work are completely different and you are just starting out on this venture. So it's not even as if I've, for instance, been around this for the last 12, 13 years, like you have for me, and hearing what I'm doing. So yeah, careers for sure. And I definitely tell you to go do that because it's a lot better than me telling you, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. But I mean, this is a big thing for me right now. Like, this is a big venture I'm on. And what you're saying is this like big life pivot I'm making. While you are supportive, you don't understand every detail. And therefore, even though this is like one of the biggest transitions I've ever taken, you're telling me to go celebrate it with other people. Like, that's okay.
That is okay. Recommended, suggested, all the words.
Okay. So, one other topic that keeps coming to my mind for today is something else I feel like we've really prioritized is separate friendships with our friends. So even if as a couple, we hang out with a friend or a different couple all the time, that you have your own friendship with that person and I have my own friendship with that person. Even if that person is like one of my closest friends, that doesn't mean they're one of your closest friends and vice versa. You might be saying, well, duh, Alex. Of course, if it's one of your closest female friends or your oldest guy friends, you're going to be closer. But I am pointing this out because people that end up in romantic partnership, I hear from them so often, well, I just want couple friends. I am now a couple. I want couple friends. And this just seems like it's not a complete thought to me. That is great that you want couple friends that you can go do things with, but having couple friends actually requires more dynamics. So let's dive into that a little bit, because my recommendation to people in a new romantic partnership is go meet the friends you want to meet. If you are part of a couple or they are part of a couple, then over time, bring the other people in. See if it is enjoyable. Because if you are now a couple and you want to meet couple friends, you are depending on multiple dynamics working. The likelihood that this is not going to go over well, that two of the people aren't going to enjoy each other, that your significant others are not going to get along, it's very possible. It's very possible. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't enjoy the person you wanted to spend time with. So let's talk a little bit about the multitude of dynamics it takes to have couple friends and what that really looks like.
Yeah, we have a number of people like that. And it just might be, again, going back to who you go to fill whatever bucket. And if you just think of your hierarchy in life, wherever career or family or wherever that falls, you might just be talking and having dialogue with one person more than the other. And so I think it all goes back to that in terms of, yes, we have our singular solo relationships with these people. And hopefully they feel that with us, those friendships and that community, and can go to us for whatever that is for them. But I think that's what we have harbored in our personal relationships, but certainly what we try to in our community. I think that's not only for us, but honestly, if you just look at what our friend group is, I think you can safely say that's the same thing for a lot of them. And that's obviously not because of us, but it's just by nature of the people we spend time with and the want and the need, honestly.
Yeah, I just think there's this like personal accountability to our friendships as a couple. So if I'm really close to a girlfriend and you are friends with her, that does not mean you are as close as I am. That does not mean she would share all the things, same things with you. I might text about shopping or go shopping with her or talk about travel, and you love karaoke together and movies, and she calls you for certain things and she calls me for other things, and we have different levels of closeness about various topics, and she could tell me a secret and say, don't tell Michael, and I wouldn't tell you. Our relationship isn't like the two of us with her. It is me with her and you with her. And that's like friends. This is a friend. But I feel like somehow we've been really good at distinguishing and putting effort into each building our own individual friendships. And sometimes with some people, you might be really, really close with a friend and I'm more of an acquaintance, and that's fine. But that doesn't mean I expect them to interact with me the same way they interact with you. Am I blowing your mind over there?
It's true. And it's interesting when you look at just our individual relationships with, one person, and then you come together as a couple. Like, honestly, those relationships are kind of different. We have a singular relationship with, call it 1 and 2. And then when we come together between, say, the 4 of us, that's actually honestly a different relationship altogether.
Yeah, it's a different relationship and a different dynamic. Like the conversations I would bring up if it was just me and my close friend are obviously not conversations I'm bringing up when it's all 4 of us. And you may not even know her and I are having those conversations. And the things you and her partner talk about are totally different. I may not know any of it.
Yep, agreed.
So, like, couple friends for us is not just you and I are friends with that couple. I mean, really, we have like our couple relationship and then 4 individual. There's like 5 relationships happening there, 5 dynamics, maybe, of the same relationships. And we don't just see it as one. And we try and support all of them in various ways, like by having boundaries and not sharing information, by spending solo time, spending maybe couple time if they're couple friends. If it's just a singular person, like your friendship and my friendship with that person, and then maybe the 3 of us hang out, but we also try and hang out with them individually. So really we're balancing a lot of dynamics. I don't feel like it's that big of a shift all the time. It's just like trying to be aware and not trying to flatten it, like trying to honor that they're different, because then people trust us with information. They share things or they call us to hang out because that friend and I can go do something and I don't need you to come along. Or you and that friend can do something and it's okay that you don't invite me.
Going back to the buckets analogy that was used earlier, it very well could be that I fill, again, a bucket through a couple and not a singular person.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can find what those different relationships bring to you, and it doesn't need to be just a singular person. Like you said, there's different dynamics for all of them. And what I would get from individual 1 is not the same as individual 2, which is not the same thing as them together.
So just to recap, this is why I say couple friends are not everything. It's a juggling act. It's a juggling act. And trying to build all those dynamics simultaneously is not the easiest. Now, you can just build the couple's dynamic, but then it can be hard to take it outside of that. If you want to just hang out with one person in that other couple, that is a shift. You have to learn how to do that. Just like if it was you and that friend, bringing in your significant others is a dynamic shift. So don't get so caught up, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There are lots of beautiful variations of friendships, community that can involve significant others, that cannot involve significant others. Go with what feels right and stop getting so committed to one dynamic over another. I think it sounds like a lot of work, but I actually think it creates less problems to do it this way. Like, I think that everybody feels better because they're enjoying the time together, feeling respected, having conversations they wish they were having. So it's a little bit of balance, but I think it just creates stronger relationships. I don't know. I mean, it is more time. I was going to say without more time, but it is more time. you're spending more time with these people, like we definitely don't do some other things because this is a priority for us. I truly do mean that this is a priority inside of our marriage. We verbalize this. We say to each other, these people around us matter. And we are going to use our time, our financial resources, our energy, our enthusiasm, our, grief. We're going to use it all. We're going to use it all. We're going to lean into it. We're going to ride this roller coaster ride. And some of the ways that that shows up is sitting down together and looking at the weekends for the next few months. We just did this today, actually, just before we recorded this episode. We sat down and we looked at all of our free weekends and we made a list of the people we feel like it's been too long. And we're going to prioritize driving, flying, getting to those people, spending time together, right? Which is a time thing, but it's also a financial choice. We are using our resources to support this. And when I talk about the joy and the grief, I mean, I feel my own emotions, but big things are happening in my friends' lives. And more times than I can count, I've had to devote emotional energy, especially recently, to the high of really happy things, but also the sorrow, the grief, the pain of really hard things where I find myself crying just because I don't want my friend hurting. That's energy that, sure, I could invest in all sorts of other parts of my life, but these people matter to me and I want to be there. So there's a variety of ways that we are prioritizing this as a couple. Because if I'm grieving for a friend, that maybe means I'm not cooking dinner, or I'm late on a deadline, or I forgot to do something I promised I would do. And that's acceptable.
More time, but less of a burden on, in my estimation, because the alternative would likely be us spending time together, which then relies, going back to you shouldering more of what they, as either a couple or an individual, would be providing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. You're saying that you wouldn't have maybe time with your guy friend to talk about work. And then because you're not getting to have those conversations, you're having them with me. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to say this has definitely been, we don't get this right all the time. I am positive our friends have struggled, that we have done things that have frustrated them. Over time, we've definitely honed in on our behaviors and acted differently. We are in no way perfect. I actually was thinking the other night, I am humbled constantly by all these relationships. That's why I refuse to say I'm an expert, because anytime I've ever thought that I know anything, suddenly some dynamic happens and I'm apologizing for something I did or feeling awkward, or everything changes. So it's always different. Thank you for listening to this episode of Friendship IRL. I am so honored to have these conversations with you, but don't let the chat die here. Send me a voice message. I created a special website just to chat with you. You can find it at alex.chat. You can also find me on Instagram. My handle @itsAlexAlexander. Or go ahead and leave a review wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. Now, if you want to take this conversation a step further, send this episode to a friend. Tell them you found it interesting, and use what we just talked about as a conversation starter the next time you and your friend hang out. No need for a teary goodbye. I'll be back with a new episode next week.